A longtime supporter of everything that we do and just a heck of a great guy. So take the time to get to know Brian. Leslie, first time she's going to be with us from United. Mm-hmm. So love the connection with airlines as we continue to try to grow the industries in which we have conversations. So take it away. Thank you very much for being here, Brian.
Thank you so much for having us. Thanks to all y'all. Let's see, how are we doing with the clicker thing? Are we up and rolling? Look at that beautiful airplane.
You threw an all y'all out there.
I did. I'm an all y'all. Well, I travel a lot, right? Yeah. So I have I kind of have like a United States accent versus just Pacific Northwest.
I have 100% Chicago, but go ahead.
100% Chicago. Great. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks for having us, and so thanks to the organizers of the conference. I get to present at this thing fairly often. Last year I did not. And can you bring my mic down just a little bit because my voice is so freaking loud? I'm going to scare myself. So with this is a special conference, especially for those of you that are first time. I'm not first time, and that's because I keep coming back, and it would be great to see you back. There are loads of folks here that can help you with all kinds of different stuff, and it doesn't matter if you're a consultant, if you're a client on the client side, if you are a student. There's so much to learn from basically look left, look right, look up, look down, and you're going to see somebody that wants to talk to you about what it is that they're doing. They want to hear from you about what you're doing, and I just find it so positive and uplifting, and I agree a lot with what Charles said, be curious. I agree with what Rob said, which is a lot of good stuff that I can't remember right now. But anyway, it's a great experience and super happy to be here and super happy to have Leslie as well. So maybe what we can do is rather than hear much more about me, we can hear from Leslie so you can get to know her a little bit too.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to Brian for inviting me. This is really exciting for me. Obviously, first time I've been here, but I've learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to taking it back to my direct team, my instructors, and United as an organization. I've been at United for almost 13 years. I actually started before that as a contractor. They hired me at the merger because I could write code and do front-end dev work, and I could work on a PC, because at the time it was a big deal to get a Mac. But that job was to take the operational content from Continental Airlines employee website and United's employee website and work with those groups to figure out which manual are we going to keep, what policies are we going to keep, what procedures are we going to keep, and how do we organize that? How do we organize it in a way that the people who need to use it can use it effectively? So I got a lot of appreciation for the operation. I'm sure this is true of other airlines, but at United, the operation is a magical, mystical beast, and all things must bow to the operation. So I learned that very quickly. I then went to InFlight, which is our group that supports our flight attendants. One thing you learn when you work at United, or probably any airline, if you're a girl and you work at an airline, the first question you get, oh, are you a flight attendant? No, I'm not. I never was. I don't have the personality to do that. But I appreciate all 28,000 of them. From InFlight, I went back to corporate communications and managed our intranet kind of as a product. A lot of training, teaching people how to use the CMS, the content management system. And from there, I went to this role in corporate safety about the end of 2021, October of 2021, and have been there ever since. My kids say all the time I'm the only person they know who loves their job.
That's amazing. Yeah, awesome. So I'm Brian, and then let me move on from that. I have the honor to represent Sologic on the stage today, but I didn't really have a lot to do with this account. I have had a lot to do with other accounts coming up, but our team did this, and Erica, our director of business development, fantastic job. And I guess I was going to use the analogy of a fish. So like Erica lands the fish.
I'm a fish?
Well, I didn't know, but then Preston, well, he preps it, Diane cooks it up, and then the dev team helps out with a little spice here and there. I don't know if that flies or not, but this is a team effort for sure. And then also I wanted to acknowledge many of you in this room. So a lot of the things, okay, like you probably know Sologic as a root cause analysis company, but we've evolved so much farther than this, and that doesn't mean that we don't do RCA, we don't embrace it, we don't do it the way Brent said, but maybe he and I can talk about that a little bit later. But we certainly are incorporating a lot. I don't talk about this much in just a couple of slides, but really embracing the HOP movement, the HOP principles, but bringing it into the process that we also know works very well. So many of you in this room shape how Sologic is today, and I just wanted to acknowledge you for that as well. So maybe we could talk a bit about United to kind of get an idea for what we're dealing with here.
So United, we are right now at about 100,000 employees. Obviously changes every single day. I actually get a spreadsheet every Monday morning with the head count of our airport operations division. Those are the people you see. They are split into two groups. Above the wing is your gate agents. When you board your flight, they scan your boarding pass. And below the wing, those are the people you see outside the airplane when you're waiting to take off that are throwing bags and marshaling an aircraft. But yeah, it changes obviously by the day. Number of aircraft, last I checked, we had 949. I'm sure that's now changing again as well. Flights per day is crazy. Airports serve 342. That's a cool new statistic for us because the FAA is now requiring SMS to be implemented in airports.
What's SMS?
Safety management systems.
Oh.
So the Part 5 rule that applies to carriers like United now applies to airports. So one of the things that my boss spends a lot of time doing is looking at how does that work? How does an airline have a safety reporting system and an airport have a safety reporting system? And if I'm an employee on the ramp, whose system do I report to? So all of those kinds of things are things we spend time on every day.
So it's big and complicated.
It's huge and complex. It's very complex, yes. Yes. One of the things, that next bullet point you see about the culture at United, you can tell from my career journey, I used to think I had a weird career path, like the weirdest career path ever. Now I just prefer to look at myself as well-rounded. But that same story is true throughout the organization. Many of the people who, my senior manager, my direct leader, he was a flight attendant. And he actually was a team of one implementing SMS at United for about 6 years. Some of my instructors started out on the ramp, load planning, and all kinds of roles. But that's a big piece of overall culture at United is promoting from within. We are also encouraged to get out of the tower and go work in the airport and make sure that our frontline feels supported and that we understand the work that the frontline does and what they face every day.
You've offered to take us out there, right? And
Yes.
last time John and I were in Chicago a couple weeks ago, she was like, you should come out to O'Hare, we'll put you on the ramp. I can't wait, they're gonna give me the things, right?
No, they're not. They're not.
No, what do you mean? I thought I get the thing. Do I get to drive the thing?
No.
What?
No.
What?
You are not pushing back an airplane.
Fine,
But
whatever.
you can talk to the guys who do.
Listen, I hear I'm trainable. I just want you to know.
Oh,
Anyway.
I'm sure you are. But
Okay.
no, they will. They might let you marshal them. Everyone, if you have any kind of opportunity, should go see what life is like on the ramp at an airport because it's crazy. It's crazy complex. It is very much controlled chaos. And those people are in a dangerous job all day, every day. And think about the people who are in the airport on the ramp right now in Las Vegas. It was 109 degrees yesterday. Mm-hmm. That's a hard job. Mm-hmm. That's a hard job.
Real hard. So what about the commercials? So that was a really happy, that's an interesting bit of trivia.
When you're walking through the airport and you see a United print ad, or you see a commercial, or the safety video that we play on board, those are all real employees. I think it started way back with the represented groups, pilots and flight attendants. Mm-hmm. Their position was no one can wear this uniform who hasn't been through flight attendant training. Mm-hmm. And then CorpCom was like, hey, free actors.
Right, free actors, exactly.
Let's use employees.
And I grabbed this screen grab this morning of all the United flights that are currently in the air. It's amazing. wait a minute, it's not quite like that. Actually, I would have had to pay the $450 for whatever to get just the United, but some percentage of those are United planes, just to give you an idea of scale.
They're all converging on Chicago.
Okay, well, so real quick about Sologic. If you don't know us, we work everywhere. We work in a lot of different industries, and we work with a lot of different disciplines. Safety, of course, is one, but reliability, quality, whatever. Just last week, I was on with audit and accounting firm in England, and we're talking about looking at audit quality problems inside the audits that they deliver on behalf of their corporate clients. So it's totally different than a lot of the kinds of things that we see here at this conference, because we're mostly focused on safety, which is great. But this is a bigger subject, and all of the stuff that we're learning has much broader applicability. So just a week before that, this is the coolest thing. I got to work on this massive deep fryer that makes French fries for McDonald's, for Burger King, or whatever. It is quite an operation to see that happening. The week before that, I'm at Amazon working on Smart Pack machine, which makes the little packages of the stuff that you guys get in the mail. So it's it's more about the diversity of our experience and the kinds of problems that we get to see, and we get to test out, because that's the thing about Sologic, is we get our boots dirty and we get out in the field. We don't just sort of cast pearls, from the ivory tower. We get out there and we test our stuff, and when it doesn't work, we fix it, and when the message needs adjusting, we do. And the reason that you see the HOT principles up here is because I thought that was something that I wanted to overtly embrace. And I know that there are different flavors of principles. There's 7 if you're at Quanta, I think. There's maybe Tesla has 6 or more. I think that the idea is that we're embracing and making these things our own. But you're going to hear this message in everything that we do, these HOT principles. And I'm not going to read them because I think you've heard them a bunch, but I just wanted to share that this is a core part of what it is that we're doing. The other kinds of things, though, that I think is implied and that you may hear depending on where you're getting the message from, but you hear it overtly in almost every class that we teach, is that we all see things differently, so we're embracing diversity. We also recognize our biases, the biases that are both good and bad and otherwise, and we account for those. We recognize we have a tendency to jump to conclusions and that doesn't always serve us well. Jumping to solutions as well is kind of the next step from there, and we like to hold back from that until we have a better understanding and we've had an opportunity to learn. And then also ad hoc problem solving. One of the things, whether you have a Sologic flavor or some other flavor there's some structured form of problem solving that you're learning from folks like us, and that structure actually is helpful. And so I'm going to flash ours up here. I like it, of course. I think it's cute. And it's our thing that we created, but there's different versions of this, and I'm not saying that my goal here was just to say that a little bit of structure, which Sologic is a process, and the human and organizational performance principles aren't necessarily a process. They're a way in which we work together. But having some process is actually really helpful. And I pulled this slide together, and so I use this in my sessions on Monday. Seemed to go okay, but so what I wanted to start with at the top is any sort of learning opportunity. And with that, I want to be inclusive about that. So are you doing an RCA, which is more retrospective? Are you doing a learning team that's retrospective or proactive? Okay, because it can go either way. FMEA, risk assessment, or whatever. We have to kind of decide, are we going to look backwards, or are we going to look forwards? But it doesn't really matter, because no matter what, we're going to need ideas and information. Those ideas and information need to come from diverse sources. I think that that's something that most of us can get behind. When we add that to a process, and that process can be unstructured or structured. I learned this from Andrea Baker. We had a long talk about this one night, and she said, I am who I need to be in the moment for the folks that I'm facilitating, and I really struck a chord with me because that's how I am too. And so sometimes you just let them go because it's working. Sometimes you got to reel it in and knuckle it down. Well, so we need to be able to, whatever the process is, it's got to have a little flexibility. Then we need to share and scale. So sharing and scaling, oftentimes we find a local level solution. Hey, that's going to work real well for around here. But maybe that's something that we can take out to our network, or it's more global. But one way or another, we need to be able to share what we're learning. And then finally, we need to be able to put it in a place that allows us to access it in the future. And that allows us to pull it up if we want to reference. track our trend, all these other things. And one of the presentations yesterday with Todd and Carrie, they were talking about a safety management system that they had created. Looks awesome. We looked at the Tesla safety management system yesterday. I saw it last year. Looks awesome. And so I'm not like a proponent. I know United has, what do you guys use a safety management system, right?
We have to.
You have to, right, you must. And
Yes.
so the idea there, though, is that all of these things together are what help us maximize these learning opportunities. And so kind of what all that means is that, and I don't know if you all get this reference or not, but that's a peanut butter cup, and that's one of, in my opinion, one of the finest pieces of candy on the planet. I love it. Well, I like it so much. And by the way, the dark Trader Joe's are absolutely crack, and they're not allowed in the house. Because you can't stop eating them. But it's two things that taste great together kind of thing, right? And then out of last year, a lot of the stuff that I learned from you all, and Andrea put the cap on it because she gave me the final couple of pages that allowed me. But it was a group effort, and some of you don't realize that you played an effort in it. But we produced this ebook, and I wanted to get that out there. This is a free download. So if you're interested in how we think that all of this stuff comes together and how our peanut butter cup is made, then 20 pages, about 15 minutes worth of reading ought to get the job done. And then if you want to talk more about it, then you can get with me and I'll do it for you. So, okay, so let's talk about your journey. So, and I'll just preface it with this, that we thought it would just be fun to hear from Leslie. What's the story? They have a neat story, and it's still unfolding. And so we've sort of organized it in a timeline format, and so this is sort of pre-Sologic. And so then these are some of the questions that we came up with for Leslie, and so maybe we can kind of start at the top, and we can mix and match and whatever. And I would say too that this is supposed to be interactive, okay? So we're not pretending we got this all figured out. If you have questions, ask them along the way. We may have to divert for time. I see the thing ticking, but at the same time, we did want it to sort of be collaborative and an opportunity for you to learn along with us, okay? So, in any case.
So this whole story kind of starts really at the very end of 2021. We United, specifically from our operating groups, airport operations and tech ops, which is our mechanics, this started mostly as an effort to reduce aircraft damages and employee injuries. We are required by the Part 5 rule to have safety objectives, and our corporate safety objectives every year are always aircraft damages and employee injuries to reduce those things. And it just wasn't happening. So we had gotten feedback from the operation. Everybody was doing root cause analysis because you have to. It's part of the whole process, part of the SMS process, and is defined in the Part 5 rule that governs SMS. So the operation came to us and said, look, we have to do this, but you don't give us a way to do it. Mm-hmm. There was no, this is how United does root cause analysis. Mm-hmm. And we knew that the problem we had was, as we were kind of analyzing events in whatever format that took, everybody had their own different thing. I think airport operations had a PowerPoint that they called a dive tool. They had, tech ops had a document they call an A3, which is just a document. Mm-hmm. All kinds of, and then airport operations also had a Word document called an accident review board, where they entered all the information from an event. But where we were stopping was, they didn't follow SOP, send them to training, brief the crew, put out an article, send them an email, those kinds of things.
So you wanted to get deeper.
And we had to get past that. How do we get past failure to follow SOP? And we preach SOP, SOP, SOP all the time. And how do we get past that? Yes, somebody made a decision, and yes, they deviated from whatever process was in place, but why? Mm-hmm. Why were they put in that position? Why did that person think that in that moment, the greater risk to them was to follow the process?
So so one of the things I think that people often hear, at least in this room and with this crowd of folks, is that when you ask why, that people feel blamed. That's not what you're trying to do, though, is it? You're just trying to dig deeper.
That's what we're trying to get past.
Right.
Because we have an employee reporting system, and it has very specific things that it must include per the Part 5 rule. Mm-hmm. It has to be confidential, it has to be non-punitive, and every single report that we get has to be reviewed by an event review committee, which includes somebody from the company, somebody from the union, and somebody from the FAA. So every single report gets funneled through that process. That is a huge backlog, and that's a different story. People don't necessarily feel like they get the response that they should get. But all of those things are very complex. And yeah, the whole point was, how do we get past this?
So how did you guys say, okay, this is what United needs, and now we're going to go out and look for it? What was that process like?
So that process was, so Keith, my senior manager, said, all right, corporate safety is going to take on this as a project. Leslie, here you go. You're going to manage this project.
And now why you? They must have had a lot of trust. Yeah. Why not you? I know, yeah.
Exactly.
They made the right choice.
I was very excited. But I also knew that this is not a one-person job, right? So I worked with some people in corporate safety and said, help me gather the experts. Like, who are the SMEs? Who's doing this now? So we put together a group of about 30 people. There were managers, analysts, senior manager and director level people.
So like different levels of the org, but then also like
different departments in the organization too, every operational group. Corporate safety, corporate security, which is like black ops secret stuff. Airport operations, in-flight, which is flight attendants, flight operations, which is pilots, tech ops, cargo and catering. All of those people are all involved in, at the time, our thresholds for an RCA, and now the threshold for you must do a Sologic RCA are any aircraft damage, anytime we damage an aircraft, even if it's within limits, we do an RCA. Significant employee injuries, and any regulatory work. So if we get a compliance action, if we voluntarily self-disclose, those all require a Sologic RCA.
That's right. And so John Boisonneau's in the back. He's being quiet, but John and I, John's one of the partners at Sologic, and you should definitely find time to corner him and chat with him about whatever you want to talk to him. I don't know what, but something. And but I just want you to know when I say John and I went out to Chicago a couple weeks ago, met with Leslie for the day. It was awesome. We got to see the NOC, the Network Operations Center. And we got to go through all of these questions ahead of time. And it was super fun. And one of the things, though, she was like, hey, we have a call that's happening right now. Do you guys want to sit in on it? And it was, without disclosing what it was, because I don't think that really matters. But it was really, really cool. There were about 125 people, and it was led by Juan. Director level. I can't remember who was actually leading the call.
I don't even remember.
But you did have several senior folks on, and there were lots of questions, and the presenters were doing a fantastic job at sharing what they learned. Yeah. And the leaders were doing a fantastic job at really embracing it, and then they were openly supportive of the whole process. And I just thought it was really, really cool. We don't get to see behind the scenes very often like that, and it was just an opportunity that Leslie led us in on.
I forgot about that.
Well, that might be us for a slide a couple down the road, but I just wanted, it just gives you an idea for kind of where they're coming from, and then ultimately where they're going with all of this stuff, which is really cool. What about leadership? So how did how far up did it go?
So the whole project was initiated by Sasha Johnson, who is our VP of Corporate Safety. She's also what we call the DOS, Director of Safety. The Part 5 rule says that you have to have an accountable executive, which is Scott Kirby, our CEO, and a DOS, a Director of Safety, which is Sasha. So she really backed the whole project. She was the executive who was backing the project. Kristen Fiore, who's the Managing Director of Operations Safety. And I think there's two levels of leadership between Sasha and the CEO. Scott Kirby was updated along the way. But yes, Sasha's very involved. Kristen's very involved. I was fortunate enough to take part in a airport operations conference in Chicago this spring, and Sasha was on the main stage, and I was in the back hiding just to see what she was going to say. And she had a whole slide on our RCA program. And she's like, you're all going to get trained this year, And she said, I see Leslie in the back, and I was like, Princess Wave.
Well, I think what's really interesting about this is, so a lot of time, we have a bunch of clients, right? But it doesn't often percolate right up to the top. But when it does, it seems to have a really important impact. We have friends from Quanta Services here, and that goes, their program goes all the way up to the top, and they're involved from the vice president level all down. I don't know, Matt's not here this year, but he was here last year, and it is just, there's no question as to their involvement. You see that at, you see Lori Shelby at Tesla. It goes, when it goes to the top, it looks different on the way down. Yesterday I sat in Dawn Wurst's, did I say that right? I just met her yesterday. But she's from Koch Industries. And when it goes all the way to the top, like the way that it does at United, it makes a big difference, is all I want to say. And so we're not always as successful at getting the message all the way up to the top. But it is with you guys. And I think that that's a key. It's critical to how much support you get and then how successful you're able to be.
We even have leadership involved so we teach, there is a 4-hour Sologic analyst class every Tuesday afternoon and every Wednesday morning at one of our hubs all year. And we have station leadership, like the vice president of O'Hare, Houston, whichever airport we're at. They often stop by and say, hey, how you guys doing? And everybody's like, we haven't seen him in months. But they stopped by. Kristen Fury, we had a 2-day, Preston came to Chicago and taught a 2-day RCA masterclass at the end of May. And Kristen Fury kicked that off with and we had people from Beijing, Costa Rica, London, all, because,
So
worldwide airline, we have people from all over the world.
All over the place, and they get to travel. They probably travel in style. That's right? Or maybe they. Oh, well, we'll talk about that later. Okay. So let's maybe move on to the next era, I guess, the next step along the way. So, but I am interested. One of the things that I didn't. That was maybe on the last slide. How did you decide on candidates, or how did you find us? It wasn't like we were knocking on your door, or you knocked on ours.
You were not.
So
we had never heard of you.
Oh yeah, right.
No. So I put together this group of people, right? So I got 30 people. Some of them they all have varying levels of root cause analysis background and education and experience with other tools. They didn't have a preference as to what we did. They had very definite feelings about some things they were not going to do. So myself and 2 other people, to be honest with you, we Googled it. Yeah.
That matters. But what did you Google? You're like root cause analysis training or something like that? I mean, maybe you don't remember, but.
No, I Googled root cause analysis. I don't know if I Googled software or program.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got a bunch of different things. We put together, I talked to several different people, different companies, put together a list of recommendations for the group of 30 people, the working team, and said, here are these 5, what do you guys think? And they said, we want to hear from this one, and this one. So Sologic came to Chicago. I think that was June of 2022.
Oh, summertime.
Yeah, because you guys went to a Cubs game.
Yeah, we went to a Cubs game, my first and only. It was fun. Yeah. Really beautiful.
So Sologic came in. We had 2 other companies that we talked to. And this still amazes me. When it came time to say, okay, what should we do? There wasn't even discussion. There wasn't even debate. Everybody was like, we want Sologic. Okay. So we started down that road. I called Erica.
Yep. She was so happy. Dude, she was so happy. It was the biggest thing she ever landed.
She was very happy.
It was the greatest thing. I wish I should have videoed her, but that's hindsight. But anyway, she was so
But to have
stoked.
30 people in that setting from all across the company agree on one thing is amazing. And it's the only thing, as far as I know anyway, it is the only thing at United that is enterprise-wide and is the same for every division. We have historically been very siloed. Airport operations does this, tech ops does this, and this is the only thing that everyone does the same way. And it's tripped up our global learning division a little bit because they're like, well, we can't take over this training because we only train AO. And we don't have AO classes.
AO is airport operations. Right.
We have Sologic classes. We don't have in-flight classes. We don't have tech ops classes. We have Sologic classes, and everyone is in that class.
So I just flipped slides while you were chatting because we're kind of jumping around a little bit, which I knew we would do. Well, hopefully y'all are okay with that. But so one of the things I was wondering about was, well, budget. So how do you decide, like, okay, how much are we going to spend on this? And like, is that, because sometimes budget is an issue where people are like, yeah, I want to do that, but that just seems too expensive. So how do you guys think about that, if you can share a little bit about?
A little bit, yeah. Actually, you guys were very helpful.
Oh, good. I'm glad we weren't unhelpful.
You were very, very helpful, because it's very much been a partnership. And Keith likes to say that you guys guide silently. We actually, our thought was, oh, we need to have an instructor in every hub, and you guys came back and said, I don't think you really need that.
Right. Well, so how did you decide? Because so internal instructors, because that's another thing. We'll certify people who certify you or whatever, but we'll train you to be a trainer, and that's what we did with these folks. But it doesn't happen all that much. Seems like it used to happen a lot more. But so maybe, why did you folks decide that you wanted your own internal trainers?
So the biggest reason was to get buy-in from the operation, from the operating groups, from the people who do this work every day. If they see, so there's myself, 3 instructors from airport operations, and 1 from tech ops, which is mechanics, technical operations. If they see those people, like, I've never once taught a class where somebody can go, Charlie, I used to work with you. He's one of my instructors. He came up on the ramp, worked in load planning, worked in all these different, like, knows all the ramp stuff. So he has a lot of connections, and that helps get buy-in from the frontline folks who are doing this work. We were also told, based on previous experience with a totally separate project and initiative years back, that we train internally.
Retrain internally. Well,
Retrain internally.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily, maybe that previous experience with someone, sometimes a consultant comes in, believe it or not, and they're looking to charge every 15-minute increments, and they're trying to lock a client in, like, and in fact, I've had a couple of conversations where the client said, well, I guess, we're under contract until next January, so, we'll make we're gonna make some decisions between now and then. Maybe they're gonna continue, which we hope, or maybe they're gonna decide to go somewhere else. But the last reason that we ever want to keep a client or to retain a client is because they're under contract. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I can imagine that when you guys bring the instructors in-house, then you have a lot of control over that sort of thing. And so even if we've built a lot of trust, that still is something that, that's a decision that you get to make, a decision point that this is risk that we want to control.
It lets us tailor our classes too, because we change, like I said, we're teaching every week.
Right.
And that class has evolved since we started. We didn't start in January because holiday operations are a thing. So we started in February. But that class has evolved based on feedback from the operation, based on feedback from leadership, like pain points, all of those things. And when you have internal instructors, that communication is easier.
So what about measurements? So how do you keep score? And we hear a lot about what are we tracking? Are we tracking lagging indicators? Are there leading indicators? And this is probably that we could use some feedback from some of you folks on too about but in general, like, what's the first score that you guys are keeping track of, or what are the major, I guess, ways in which you're counting?
Like I said, reducing aircraft damages is always a big deal. This year, it is a bigger deal. We actually created a new category called controllable damages that we're tracking. But the exciting part about KPIs and measurement and data in all of this is that the other side of my director's team is data scientists. We have two data scientists in Chicago and a team in India. And what they're doing is taking all the information, all the data that we generate in our Causelink system, and feeding it into our data repository, which is called Foundry, and overlaying it with all our other safety data, with the data from our learning management system. So how many people have completed the class, what levels do we need, what divisions, all of that kind of thing. Right now, just to get good benchmarks, like, are we doing better than we did? It's kind of early to really have good data around that because we're still working on
Doing
connecting
better
all
means
those
the
things.
numbers are going down?
Yes.
But how do you know that, like, and I see Georgina in the front, and I just read, Georgina Poole, her book just dropped this week. I'm going to promote your book a little bit, but it's so good around metrics and how we count and how we keep track. Leslie has it.
I went straight to chapter 6.
Okay. Well, so from that perspective, though, we're looking at numbers, and we're trying to make those numbers go in a direction. In this case, down, damage events down, injuries down. And then is it relatively easy to track what we're learning from RCAs and our learning events, and then to sort of bridge that gap between those actions and what we see in the metrics?
Yeah, the way that we're working on doing that, so United has a hierarchy of controls. I'm sure all of you have seen a similar thing. So what we're working on connecting now is pulling our solutions out of Causelink.
Right.
What causes were they attached to? And then mapping those solutions to our hierarchy of controls to get a measurement of effectiveness. I'll be honest with you, it's an area where we struggle. Interim mitigations versus solutions. Every single RC I've ever facilitated, somebody says, here are the solutions we've already implemented. That's not a solution. You didn't even look at anything yet.
Yeah.
That's an interim mitigation. It's great, and you have to do it, and you have to document it, but it's not a solution. So pushing past that, okay, now we know how to do this, everybody's happy about the direction and the focusing more on the system and not the people. But now how do we get proficient?
Yeah.
Is where we're.
So I kind of feel like the need to define a couple of things about our process, because I didn't talk Sologic at all, and I didn't want to. I want to give as much airtime to Leslie and her story. But one of the things about Sologic is, yes, root cause analysis. You heard that she Googles it, and that's where our new business comes from, by the way. Even though I would say, when you go to our website right now, John and I and another person internally, we're moving the language and expanding the language so that we don't alienate our traditional root cause analysis line of inquiry and business, because of course we're going to be doing that, but we're doing so much more than that these days. And the reason that you hear folks like us talk about RCA and not abandon RCA and move away is because we've evolved it. RCA itself is a class. There's a whole bunch of different RCA types. It's not one thing. And I'm not even going to stand up here and say, well, one thing is better than another, because as I've done this now over the last 25 years or so, I realized that there are horses for courses, as I heard Amy say at breakfast this morning, wherever you are. There you are. And Amy from FHR. There are horses for courses, so who am I to say what works best for Jennifer or for Georgina or for Amy or for Shannon, or whatever. But I think, so when you hear the word RCA, it's not one thing. And also when you hear the word RCA, I took my first class in '97, and never once did I hear that there was a single root cause that we were supposed to find, like some kind of one cause to rule them all. The big reveal was like, look at all of these causes and all of these contributors and all of this context, that when we do a good job at facilitating learning, then we're actually able to do what Leslie just said, which was use the term solutions, because it's plural, because we're not looking for one single thing. We're looking at a variety of different things, and we're making an informed, diverse decision about our actions that we're going to take based upon what we learn.
Yes.
So I just wanted to get that out. And then Causelink, she keeps saying Causelink. I took the slide out that said that Sologic does training, consulting, and software. So Causelink is our software baby. So. And then, may I, one more, because I can't stop. The slide that I pulled up showing the 4 different boxes, and then what Leslie's talking about right now is where that data ultimately resides and ends up. So you go to ETQ, you get to, what was the other one that you said? There was Foundry.
Foundry is the data visualization tool. That's where we build all our dashboards.
Causelink and all of that.
Yep, all of that data.
So so there is a digital role to play here, and a topic that John and I did a couple of years ago was talking about artificial intelligence. We've talked about that with Leslie too, but all of that comes once you get your data in some kind of consistent storage area, and it's not some panacea. And as we get there, it's gonna open up new problems and new challenges and new risks, but we are absolutely going in that direction. And then you hear for what they're doing, like some of the stuff that I'm hearing from Les right now, is stuff that I'm kind of hearing for the first time.
The direction that our data science group wants to go is really, and they're working on it right now. So the future state is to be not so retrospective, as Brian says, which is where we are now.
You said yeah, we used to say reactive, and now we're retrospective.
This bad thing happened, let's look at it.
Right.
But to take all that data, the slide that you had at the beginning with the local and system-wide, we get a lot of local mitigations. Well, we fly 787s in a bunch of places. It might not just be your airport. So to pull all those solutions, mapping their effectiveness, and then the future state, we want, when you put a solution into Causelink, that the system can ping you and say, you know what, maybe brief the crew isn't the most effective solution. This has been more effective on events like this. And to be able to get to more of a proactive, helping people through the whole process.
Right, to make sense of it. One of the things, any of you folks that are toying around with AI and in terms of like wondering if it's going to take our jobs as safety professionals or learning professionals, and it is absolutely not. But what it's really, really, really good at is the boring part of parsing through a lot of data at once. It identifies patterns that are interesting to look at, and we treat it as another member of our team, of our learning team, of our investigation team. And we don't take it at face value, but we appreciate all that it's capable of doing. And there's a variety of different ways that it can be extremely helpful in bringing ideas and visualizations and interesting mental models and all kinds of other stuff.
And connecting things like, these 4 RCAs are very similar, but this one happened in San Juan, and this one happened in Miami, and this one happened in Seattle.
Well, there you go.
Pulling all of those things together is that was part of the criteria from the beginning.
So maybe we can shift and we'll chat about students. Okay, because people are going through training and so all we need to do is sheep dip them and then they're good.
Oh yeah.
Right? Is that how that works?
Depends on what level of leadership you ask. That is a pain point for us, is that, well, they were trained, they should know. The difference between training and proficiency is the point that we're at now in this program. So we have trained over 500 people at the analyst level and 15 at the master level. The master level people are the designated SMEs in their region or their station. We have tried to really build in support for them, because I told Brian earlier, and I think he cringes a little when I say this, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Please.
This is the weirdest program to stand up and run, because I want everyone to love it as much as I do and see the value in it and be proficient in it. But then I hope you never have to use it, because it means something bad happened.
Well, that's true. You don't
want
want
an airplane, and that's not good.
No, that's right. We don't want bad things to happen, and we want to reduce probability, and we want to reduce severity and increase detectability of those kinds of things. But it doesn't mean that you're not learning things proactively too, right?
So we do have the basic class is 4 hours in person. After that, we have a call every single Friday afternoon called Sologic Best Practices. John has been on that call. Preston has been on that call. I will bother you eventually.
Invite me. I want to do it. I love that kind of thing.
It actually started as office hours, where we just had this open hour where people could come and ask questions. And lots of people came, but nobody had questions. They just wanted to hear what everybody else was talking about. So I thought, well, okay, let me give you a topic every week. So I based that on what I see in classes, questions I get from the field, things that are not, that maybe people have forgotten or not understanding. So we have that. We also have, there's one Thursday. Every month I have a 2-hour call that is a charting practice call, where people get on a Teams call and I give them an example problem, and they take turns working through it and sharing their screens, so they get the muscle memory of building the chart and mentally thinking through the process, but also doing it in front of people, because that's one of the things that happens on a regular basis. When we damage an airplane, there is a call called an ARB, an accident review board, where somebody from that station runs through the root cause analysis, the event, the solutions, and there's usually about 150 people on that call, and it can be intimidating. So we wanted to help support that.
And the one that we were on, that was what we were on,
that
right?
That was an ARB,
yeah. And they were supportive. And you could hear the person feel like they're out of their element when they know that they've got a big audience, and they know that they don't, maybe there's some, And it can be scary for somebody to share what they've learned. But that call was very supportive and super helpful. And I felt like they just, like if it had been me that was receiving that feedback, it would have made me want to do another one. I thought it was really great.
Yeah, like I said, if they have to do another one, that means uh-oh. But
I know. So what about the structure? So I wanted to talk about the value. One of my things is that, and I think this is an opportunity for some of you folks that are willing to be a little bit curious and corner me about this later. One of the things that I really like about what we offer is structure. And that doesn't mean that we're forcing you into a box and requiring you to do all of this heavy-handed stuff. But a little structure goes a long way for some of these, especially these more complex events, because it kind of, I've been a facilitator of all kinds of different problems, events, or whatever you want to call them. And I remember the very first one, and it was so crazy how much information was coming my way. I couldn't write fast enough. I couldn't keep up with all of it. And if I didn't have a little bit of structure in my life, I would have been overwhelmed, but the structure really helped support me through that, and then it does that every single time. So maybe what's your experience
I think
with
if
that?
we didn't have the structure in place, that's what we were looking for.
Right.
That's what we needed. We needed this is how United does root cause analysis.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have that structure in place, then we would be back in the same where we started, where everybody was like, well, this is how airport operations is going to do it. And everybody would kind of go their own way. So, and I very rarely say root cause analysis when I teach a class.
What do you say?
Structured problem solving.
Structured problem solving, organizational learning. There's a lot of different things that we're testing out. Yet, what are people Googling?
Root cause analysis.
Well, they are, and they are going to continue to do that, and we are not going to move away from that. That would be freaking suicide. Like from the way the new business that comes in the door, that's what a lot of people are looking for. But if we have them come in the door, then we can have this conversation, and so pretty cool. Well, I thought I would get to 2005 and beyond. I see, I'm looking at about less than 5 minutes, so I want to definitely get some questions from folks. So what's next?
What's next?
Yeah.
Audits, connecting our audits to requiring a Sologic RCA on audits.
When you say an audit, you mean like when you find a significant deviation in an audit?
We'd audit in a lot of ways.
Okay.
We have an IEP team, internal evaluation program. They audit based on requests from the operation. So all of their findings, we have quality assurance audits. So they issue findings. FMEA, I think, is going to be the next big thing for us.
That's something that's super popular with this group. Everybody comes up and they're like, can you show me how to do an FMEA and really dig into the details, No, maybe not. Maybe I never heard that from any of you. But it is a super fun process, and I would love to talk to people about that sort of forward-looking, proactive learning and all of that. There's a lot of stuff that we can learn from that. But
FMEA is next for us. I think branching out from safety into reliability and engineering, audits, bringing in other groups like corporate real estate. That's the people who design what our gate layouts look like.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody from CRE said to me one time, I think we should be in there. And I said, I do too, because we talk about you in our CAs.
Because we do.
You should be in there.
That's right, it matters.
Yep.
Awesome. So what about other airlines? I wanted to talk a little bit about your willingness to collaborate. I know we got a presentation from someone at American tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't know if that person is here now, but is this a competitive advantage for you and you're like holding it closely, or are you will share safety related stuff?
Absolutely. Airlines are very deliberate about never competing in safety. Safety is not a competition. It's just the way we do our day to day.
Right.
So yeah, I'm totally good sharing that. We actually have a conference in September that our internal evaluation team is hosting, where there'll be about 20 plus airlines there.
Well, what about non-airlines? What about like folks in this room, right? You would collaborate with any of these folks,
absolutely.
right? That'd be super fun.
And I will talk about Sologic anytime anyone gives me a chance.
Well, we're happy for that. But like just in terms of like the overall experience, and as so this is a tricky thing. Like a big company comes along and they're like, hey, we want to make a big change and we want to bring this in, and we're gonna like all of these decisions. It's not easy, and it's complicated and confusing, and it's like making sausage and all of that. And so I just thought that it would be really interesting for you all to hear Leslie's story, and maybe with a little bit of salt and pepper from me on the side. What do you think? Is there anything else that you really wanted to say to the folks? And then,
I think The lessons learned piece of it, we've learned that we can, when we're all speaking the same language, we're all using the same platform, we're all using the same system, it really makes a big difference. So if there's an incident that involves several operating groups or more than one operating group, they all go do their own investigation, but everybody's on the same call when we analyze the event. They're all on the call. And that makes a huge difference, and we're finding out things that we didn't know. And it's been really good. The other thing is this, and Keith has told you this before, this has been an amazing partnership. Sologic wasn't like, thanks for buying our software, see ya. John has been great. Preston has answered phone calls for me from the weirdest places in the world.
Where was the one, though, you said?
A barge in Paducah, Kentucky.
Paducah, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Quilting capital of the world.
Yes, quilting capital of the world. Halfway to my mom's house. Yeah, so it's been a real, and Preston and I work really closely together to tailor our classes to make sure that they fit the need for that particular class.
Right.
And that's been the best part of the whole thing.
Yeah, well, so then the takeaway is from consultants and service providers is like, listen, adapt, and stand by your guns when you have to. You gotta kind of draw a line a little bit, and they're relying on you for that. But I think that listen, adapt, get in the trenches, be willing to with humble inquiry into your own process. Don't put your stuff up on a pedestal and like, oh my God, look at this thing I made, it's so awesome. It always get able to be improved and I guess modified and innovated with. So,
yeah.
Well, geez, so it's 6, 5, 4, 3. Do we have time for a couple of questions from people? I mean, this is a big subject, y'all. I mean, when we were in Chicago and we had gotten, slide 1 took an hour and a half. We were rapping the whole time. I was like, geez, we're gonna have no trouble filling up our time zone. Nope. So does anybody have any questions for me or for Leslie? Hopefully for Leslie. Anyone?
Go ahead.
Brian.
Yes, sir.
Are you both going to be available this afternoon?
Yeah.
No. Yes.
I will. Don't listen.
All right.
I'm going to take a nap,
Leslie,
but I'm going to
we
pretend
appreciate
that I'm
you being
working.
available. So I know there will be questions and concerns, but we are at time, and
Okay.
Yes, sir.
we have to stay on schedule from where we are for now. So
Yeah.
thank you so much to
Thanks
both
for
of you.
having us. Thanks for having us.